Welcome to our continuation of our study on the Book of Joy, a book by the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and it's put together by Douglas Abrams. And we've been looking at the 8 pillars of joy, which the book closes with. So we've looked at the 4 pillars of the mind: perspective, humility, humour and acceptance. And we're now looking at the 4 pillars of the heart: forgiveness, gratitude, and we're now looking at compassion. And in the book, the title for the little chapter on compassion says, "Compassion, something we want to become." And both the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu see compassion as something that's innate in us. It's a natural reaction. We want to be compassionate. We respond when we see compassionate acts or do compassionate acts. So it's something that's innate in us as humans, and I think the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu would see it as innate in all creation. Everything wants to be compassionate to others. There's a way of linking us all. And the book has many examples, powerful examples of acts of compassion. I think the one that really got me was one of the monks who was arrested when the Dalai Lama fled from Tibet, and this monk was placed in one of the Chinese, I think you could only call it a concentration camp. And the description of the brutality and degradation of that camp was just heartbreaking. I think at one point he spoke about being so hungry that he wanted to eat the flesh of one of the fellow prisoners who had died, but he couldn't because it was so cold, the body had frozen. And there's just this brutality of these people: forced labour, no food, freezing cold. It was just so horrible. And he was one of the few monks, one of the few prisoners to leave that camp alive. Most of them died. And he spoke about that experience, and he says, "There were times I had great fear." And everyone listening to him says, "You could imagine how much fear you would have." He says, "At times I had great fear that I was losing my compassion for the guards." And you just think, well, how could any of us ever get to a stage where we could think in the middle of that about being compassionate to our enemies? But acts of compassion aren't just for the saints and the Holy of Holies. This is something that's innate in all of us. I remember when I was in the prison chaplaincy service, and we were going around one of the halls, and there was a prisoner who relied on his radio. It's what kept him sane, and his batteries had run out. And one of the other prisoners heard that his batteries had run out, so he went and took batteries out one of his devices, and he gave it to the other prisoner. And it was this, he knew that his need was greater for those batteries, therefore he had to give them over. And I think those little acts of compassion that we see every day really do touch us and stay with us. There's something about how they just really connect with us. So there's something very powerful about acts of compassion, and we do respond to them in a way which is maybe beyond our understanding. So it's something that's there in all of us, and it's something that we really want to do. It's why we volunteer. People volunteer because they get something back from volunteering and from helping other people. And the scientists would say that there's certain endorphins released when we do acts of compassion that make us feel good. The Dalai Lama talks about the word for compassion always coming from the mother, and Douglas Abrams, coming from his Jewish background, says that in the Hebrew Bible the word for compassion is the same root for womb. That idea that we're taught compassion from an early age, and it's something that's very, very strong in us. If it's so innate in us, if it's something that's universal, then the question is, why is there not more acts of compassion, and why do people do things that are far from compassionate? Some would see the whole system, certainly the capitalist system, as creating each other as competitors. We see it in the sale adverts. When it's gone, be quick, be the first. That idea of there's not enough to go around, so be quick, get yours before anyone else does. So that system of scarcity, that there's not enough to go around, grab it before someone else does. And then the whole spiritual practices says there is actually enough for everyone's needs, and we need to learn how to share. Enough for everyone's needs, not always enough for everyone's wants, and those wants are often things that we didn't even know that we wanted, but they're promoted and sold to us. Archbishop Desmond Tutu has that wonderful way of taking complex theological ideas and just making them into nice bite-sized understandable chunks. So he says that we're all made in God's image and God's likeness. He says we're made in God's image, which he describes as we are all God carriers. We carry God, a bit of God, out into the world around us. He says, but we have to learn and work into being more God-like. So the likeness side, we have to work on that a little bit too. So it's there in us, but we need to try and overcome all the other obstacles and competitors to that natural state of being. Brené Brown is an American social science researcher. She looks at all sorts of things. But in one of her books, she's looking at acts of good leadership and the sort of qualities that we require. And she says, for a good leader, what we think of as a good leader is someone who has a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart. And that idea of a strong back, being able to stand up to all the different competing ideas and the different temptations and different stand up, strong back. Soft front means you're open. It's a vulnerable place to be though, but you're open to other people's needs. And of course a wild heart, because God's creation is wonderful and we should be excited about it. But she says what's the safest thing to do is to have a soft back. You just sway with whatever the dominant culture is. To have a strong front, protect yourself, don't let yourself be vulnerable, and your heart will just peters out. So she explains that lovely way of two ways of being tempted. One is very vulnerable and being open, but also a steeliness in there as well, about not being swayed by the dominant ways of doing things. So compassion is innate. It releases all these endorphins. It makes us feel good. It connects us with other people in a really, really deep way. We respond to acts of compassion in a way which we don't always understand, and it makes the world a lot better. We get the idea of compassion for others, and we also need to remember we need to be compassionate to ourselves, self-compassion. Remember when the lawyer asked Jesus what's the most important of the laws, and Jesus replies, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbour as yourself. So we have to get the as yourself bit right as well. The number of people who've said to me, I get the love God bit, I get the love your neighbour bit, it's the love myself bit that I struggle with. So just as we're compassionate to others, we have to be compassionate to ourselves. When we fall short of the mark, when we do things, and we've all got the bits in us which we're embarrassed and ashamed of, and the things that we don't like about ourselves. But we have to be compassionate and gentle to ourselves about those things too. We are, as Desmond Tutu says, we are a masterpiece in the making. We are growing into our God-likeness. So we're on that journey. We're not there yet. And maybe it takes a lifetime before we even begin to see the end line. So compassion is, such a central thing. And we've got a little meditation. It's a wee bit longer, this one, on compassion. And we shall just take you through this really nice meditation about compassion. And it's one which comes from the Dalai Lama's translator, Jinpa, and he has a school, compassion cultivation training program, Jinpa's. He does this book called The Fearless Heart. So let's get ready and do a meditation for compassion. So finding a comfortable sitting position, let's just still ourselves and center ourselves. Do that by taking several long breaths through your nose. Just a few of those breathing exercises, breathing in and breathing out. And just a couple of minutes just on focusing on your breath. Your lungs filling, abdomen expanding, and lungs emptying. So just taking that real focus onto our breathing. Now think of someone who you love very much, a relative or a friend or even a pet, and try to either see their face in your mind's eye or feel their presence. Notice how your heart feels when you think of them. And as you notice them, you see their face in your mind, feel what arises. You might feel warmth or tenderness or affection. And if you do, stay with those feelings for a while. If not, just stay with that thought of your loved one. Bring them to mind. See their face. Feel their presence. Notice the feelings that arise. Now say to yourself the following lines. May you be free from suffering. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you find peace and joy. Breathe in, and as you breathe out, imagine a warm light coming from the center of your heart, carrying your love to your loved one and bringing them peace and joy. Rejoice in the thought of your loved one's happiness for a minute or two. And now remember when this person was having a difficult time. And notice what it feels like to experience their pain. Does your heart ache? Do you have a feeling of unease in your stomach or a desire to help? Simply notice the feelings and stay with them. That feeling in the stomach, the desire to help, an aching heart. And again, offering the following phrase. May you be free from suffering. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you find peace and joy. And again, imagine that a warm light emerges from the centre of your heart and touches the person you have in mind, easing their suffering. Finish with a heartfelt wish that they may be free of suffering. And think of a time when you experience great difficulty or suffering, when you were a child growing up, or something that's happened recently. As you go back to that place and time, place your hand on your heart and notice feelings of warmth, tenderness and caring towards yourself. Reflect on the fact that just like all people, you want to be happy and free from suffering. Now offer the following phrase for yourself. May I be free from suffering. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I find peace and joy. Now imagine someone you neither like nor dislike, someone you might see at work or in a shop or just someone out and about, but someone that you don't have a strong positive or negative feeling towards. Reflect on the fact that just like all people, this person wants to be happy and free of suffering too. Imagine this person being faced with suffering, maybe in conflict with a loved one or experiencing despair or grief. Allow your heart to feel warmth, tenderness and caring for this person and an urge to help them, and offer them this phrase. May you be free from suffering. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you find peace and joy. Reflect on the fact that everyone on the planet has the fundamental desire to be happy and to be free from suffering. Fill your heart with the desire that all be free from suffering. Perhaps even someone with whom you have a difficult relationship, someone who has maybe caused you problems or has hurt you. And if you can bring them to mind, along with everyone else, offer that phrase again. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings find peace and joy. Allow your feelings of compassion and concern to fill your heart and feel the warmth, tenderness and caring. Radiate this feeling of compassion out into the world. It's a nice meditation to do, and that idea of taking someone that you love first, then someone you're a bit indifferent about, also yourself, and then going further and further out, and also including those who we maybe have difficult relationships with too. And of course, holding people in that sort of prayerful, heartfelt connection is something we all do just in our prayers to Desmond Tutu's a great one for praying every day for so many different people. Desmond Tutu also has a weekly fast. He fasts 1 day a week, and that's his fast for compassion. And as he's got older, he said that his doctor told him that he has to at least drink while he's fasting for that 1 day. So he has his hot chocolate fast now. But again, that idea of doing something deliberate and intentional, and find that way of connecting ourselves with others and bringing others and ourselves into our heart and into that caring and compassionate place. Thank you very much once again for joining us, and next week we'll have the last of our 8 pillars of joy. Take care and God bless.